It's 7 o'clock here, GTV. You want to go ahead and start the recording now, please?
He's trying to make it into a two-family.
Okay, welcome everyone to the, what is this? The March 5th meeting of the Goffstown Zoning Board of Adjustment. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. The Goffstown Zoning Board is an elected board of 5 members and up to 5 appointed alternates. We currently have a full board and 1 alternate. If anyone is interested in becoming an alternate, please see the Zoning and Planning Department at Town Hall. The board has a posted agenda for each meeting and tends to follow the items in order. The board will open a public hearing on an application to receive testimony from applicants, abutters, and affected parties, and ask questions about the request. The public hearing will then be closed, and the board will enter into a deliberative session to discuss the merits of the request. For each application, the board will decide to approve with conditions, deny, or continue to a later meeting. You're welcome to watch the deliberations this evening, or you can contact the Zoning and Planning Office at Town Hall tomorrow morning to get the results. For an applicant's request to be approved, there must be an affirmative vote of at least 3 members of the board. An applicant can request a continuance if there is not a full 5-member board to act on an application. If you are aggrieved by a decision made by the ZBA tonight, you have the right to appeal to Superior Court. However, before appealing to the Superior Court, you must request a rehearing with this board to preserve your right to appeal. Rehearing request must be filed within 30 days of the decision and state all reasons why the decision was unlawful or unreasonable. Pardon my dry throat. Failure to request a rehearing may forfeit your ability to appeal to the Superior Court. Please silence your cell phones for the balance of this meeting. And I'll ask the board to introduce themselves, starting over in the corner with Jack.
Jack Shepherd, Building Inspector.
Alan Yaton, member.
Gayla Breck, Recording Secretary.
Denise Langley, Vice Chair.
Leonard Stewart, Chairman.
Judy Elaine, Member.
Jason Cody, member.
John Belville, alternate.
All right, first order of business tonight is going to be approval of the minutes.
Can I comment? The approval of the minutes reflects the vote incorrectly. It reflects 401, but it says 500, but you abstained, so it should be 401. And it also says 2023 when it should say 2024.
Okay, would anyone like to move to approve?
I move
with
the
those
motion
corrections?
with those changes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, moving into our first application this evening. Israel and Shannon Carey, applicant owner, is seeking a special exception and a variance to allow the keeping of chickens and a rooster on the property. A variance is required as the lot is under 2 acres and there are more than 10 chickens as well as 1 rooster located on the property. Per sections 5.4.2.5, 5.4.2.5.1, and 5.4.2.5.2 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. On lots less than 2 acres, only 10 chickens are permitted and no roosters are allowed. The property is 1 acre in size. The applicant is also requesting a special exception per sections 5.4.2.5 and 5.4.2.5.3 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance, as the chicken coop is located 20 feet from the side property line, whereas a 50-foot setback is required. The property is located at 16 Gorham Pond Road, map 7, lot 60, split zoned agricultural and residential 1. With the note that the chickens, rooster, and chicken coop are located within the agricultural zone portion of the property. The applicant or is anyone speaking for him would like to come up and
Regional impact?
make a presentation. And well, come on up, and while we're doing that, who wants to move?
Our
regional
motion is
impact?
no regional impact.
Second.
All in favor?
Who's the second?
Aye.
Aye.
Who did you acknowledge as the second? Who's the second? I heard two voices.
Judy.
Hello.
Tell us about your application, sir, and please identify yourself and spell your name for the benefit of the recording secretary.
My name is Israel Carey, Israelcarey. Gail, you should know that.
I know that, yes.
I live at 16 Gorham Pond Road. Sorry, this is all new to me. I'm asking for exemptions. I guess I had some anonymous complaints made against me. My chicken coop's been there for just about 4 years, a little bit over 4 years. The rooster's been there the same amount of time, so have most of my chickens. I chose that location because it's the furthest from the woods, and in my backyard, the only other level place to put it is on top of my septic, which I don't want to do if I have to ever replace my septic. I try to keep it from the woods because it attracts animals that want to eat chickens, which even where it is, there's still some that come. But like I said, it's been there for about 4 years. I've talked to most of my neighbors, and none of them have a problem with it. I don't know where anonymous complaints came from. The only thing I can think of is my wife is the one that put in the tax cap warrant article, and after she presented it 2 days later, I got anonymous complaints and a visit from the zoning board. So, I don't know. I'm new to this, so.
Well, complaints or no complaints, it still does not conform to the ordinance.
Correct.
So your job here this evening is to go through the criteria. You don't have to do it word for word, but you need to have a hardship. You need to tell us why on this particular piece of property it causes you to not follow the zoning ordinances. in this
Like I
town.
said, I'm sorry. Sorry, I interrupted you. Like I said, right now it's the furthest that I could get it from the tree line. Because when I put it near the tree line, you get animals that come in, wild animals. I have pets. I'm trying to keep my animals safe. Plus, most of the other places I checked, it was all rock. When I put my coop in, I like to put chicken wire underneath it to keep from digging critters to get underneath it. And everywhere else that I had open in my yard, it was either rock or, like I said, it was my septic. And I don't want to put anything on my septic if there's ever an issue with it. It's just going to make it harder for anything to be done. And I can't move it to my backyard because I'll have to drive over my septic to bring it closer to the woods.
So may I ask that we deal with one at a time? I would like to go through the variance criteria before the special exception. So which would be the amount of chickens in the rooster.
Yes. When I first put it in, I didn't have the zoning paperwork. I had asked somebody, but I got it too late. All my chickens are hand raised, they're friendly. My rooster, you could go in and pick him up and hold him. He's friendly. They're my kids' pets. I don't want to have to get rid of them, but if I have to, I will.
How many chickens do you have?
Right now, I think I have 14. And a rooster, so 15 total. They are all in a fenced-in area. We used to free roam them, but we don't anymore because they were getting eaten. So,
I'll ask the question. Why the rooster?
when I got the chickens, some of the pics were from an unsexed bin, and he just happened to be there. So I hatch my own chickens when we replace them, and we've got a few more roosters, which I haven't kept more than 2. I haven't kept more than 1. I've had a couple, and when I found out they were roosters, they disappeared.
How many, I'm looking through your paperwork, how many do you have? I see various.
How many chickens?
Yeah, I see 15 hens and a rooster
Okay.
on one sheet here, so.
Okay, it could be 15 hens and a rooster. My kids take care of them. It's my kids' job to go out and clean them and collect the eggs and all that, so I don't always know how many are there.
Have you had 15 from the outset, or has the flock increased?
No, it's always been about 15 or 16. I think when we started, we got 2 dozen. Yeah, we had about 20, but some of them died and 20 was too many.
And these are chickens you keep year-round?
Yes.
They're not-
Yep, they provide eggs for us. Teach my kids responsibility. They go out, clean them, feed them, water them. We used to free roam them, but bobcats, foxes, you name it, we're eating them. So I put up a 6-foot predator fence around their area, and that's where they stay.
So besides the coop, you got a bigger fenced-in area.
Yep.
So really, the coop is one thing, but how big is the fenced-in area?
Probably 20 feet by 40 or 50 feet.
Okay, so it's 20 by 40.
The fence is 20 by 40, yes.
And the rooster is used for what purpose, if anything?
Fertilizing my eggs so I can get more chickens when some of mine die.
Waking you up.
He's locked in at night, so he doesn't, it's muffled, but, and I will say that whoever said that roosters only crow in the morning were liars. So.
That's what I thought.
But I don't hear them from inside my house, well, at least anymore if I did, but. This is my neighbor, he came with me, he doesn't hear them at all.
Yeah.
I hear my neighbor's roosters, and I love it.
I've got
But
that from a few of
my
my neighbors.
opinion doesn't matter. This evening.
Uh,
You know, they have more than 1 acre of land, you know, so it's a non-issue for me. And that's our job here, is to go look at what the variance is and the intent of it.
So the variance is in question is that the lot is under 2 acres,
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Well,
Yes,
and the
for
variance-
the agricultural.
And the variance we're
all-
dealing with is the number of chickens allowed on under 2 acres.
Yeah.
What's the minimum lot size in that zone?
That's
Not
our-
certain, but it's
Minimum.
all
2
zones,
acres.
it has to be 2
2
acres.
acres
Yeah.
for chickens. or
No matter
I
what.
don't know, but what's the minimum lot size in that zone?
Yeah.
I believe
So-
it's
I'm guessing you know.
Huh?
You know?
You know?
Don't make us look it up, you know.
it's an R1. It's probably an R1.
He's
Well, it's-
agricultural.
No, it's
well, it's a-
agriculture.
It's a
Yeah.
split.
I gotta be quiet.
1 acre,
What?
1 acre.
1 acre,
Because of R1?
No, in agricultural?
yes.
Because of
Yes.
Well,
R1?
this is a split zone
This is a
lot.
split
No,
It says
well,
split zone.
wait-
Okay, wait, I think you need to back up and listen to Alan.
It
This
doesn't
is
show on
interesting.
the tax map, a split zone. So where did that come from?
I know when I go look at the GIS map, it has it,
Yeah.
it'll show it split zone.
Yeah, I've also looked it up on the GIS, and it does show split zone on the GIS.
So what is the worst zone that we've been through the split zone before,
But
recently.
it
He's in-
doesn't matter, Alan, because in this case, if it's under 2 acres in any zone, it still is 10, it still is 10. It's specific on that. You
Oh,
have
I
to
read
be-
it.
Have to be two,
There's only
have to be
half a-
2 acres
There's only
to
one
have
page
110.
in those zoning ordinance doing with chickens, okay?
It's thorough. I mean, it's agricultural lot,
So even-
Slash
but even if it was a straight
No.
agricultural lot,
still.
it's
Yeah,
It's still,
under 2 acres is what we're dealing with right
Okay.
now.
Okay? Where's your septic system?
It's in my backyard.
Well, your backyard is pretty big.
So, have you seen the front of my property?
Yep.
Yes, I have.
So you know where right next to my wife's little farm stand, there's that little drive-through, or area where you can go into my backyard?
Yeah.
It's literally right on the other side of that.
So it's actually in your front yard,
almost.
the septic system. It's in your front yard. It's
closest
in the
to
front
the
50
stone,
feet.
closest
It's in
to
the
the
front 50
stone
feet.
wall in front or closer to the back of the property?
Closer to the stone wall in the front.
Yeah.
So like, literally you get to the end of where it goes up, and it's right there. And then the leach field goes out to where you can see the pipe sticking out of the ground.
What would the hardship of this criteria be?
Well,
We're not there yet. We're still,
no,
yeah, we're still in the variance, okay.
So what we have to determine is what makes this particular piece of property
What's this?
different than any other piece of property. That's an acre, under 2 acres. Makes it
Wonderful.
different and would give
That's what the
you the reason that you could change or ask for a variance. So in this case, we're looking for 10 chickens,
It's cleared.
no rooster. That's what the ordinance states. So you need to tell me what makes this particular lot different than any other 1 acre lot that justifies you having more.
I don't know why they're 2 acres or the 6, you can't have less than or more than 10 chickens. I can see if I had 100 chickens, but mine are all contained, they're not everywhere. There's numerous other houses around me that I don't know what their land is, but they all have plenty of chickens, and I hear roosters all the time, even right down on Church Street. I don't know, I've always figured it was part agricultural. Like I said, I didn't know all the zoning laws.
What do you feel would be the hardship imposed in just reducing the count of your chickens to 10? What hardship would that cause you?
More for my kids. They're theirs, they raise them, they hatch them. It's their pets.
Alan, you look like you're forming a thought.
I've always got one of those. I just, I look at it, is there any other location on this site for the coop that meets the 50-foot setback? I believe there is. Now, it may not be easy to get to, but it is available.
I'm not gonna disagree with you on that, but I think we have to take one at a time, and one is the count of chickens, one is the location of the coop. If you wanna switch them, then we can talk about that. I mean, I think
'Cause I
we're
think,
combining the two right now.
I think with Denise, is
Well-
operating the right way. We need to deal with the variance first, because regardless of the location of the coop, you're still gonna be dealing with the amount of chickens allowed,
And the rooster.
well,
And
and
the
a rooster.
rooster.
So I think, we need to deal with the variance first, because the special exception piece is what's going to deal with the location of the coop.
Is there any public that wants to talk to the variance side of it?
Oh, we'll get that probably eventually.
We can get there. Let's first ask, do you have anything further you'd like to add? All the material in your application becomes part of the board's record. Oh, you don't have to, elaborate on anything word for word, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, that's your right.
I don't know if there would be anything else I could add right now.
All right, with that, anything more from the board? Otherwise, I'm gonna ask for public comment. All right, hearing nothing, we'd like to step back, Mr. Carey, and I'll ask if there's anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this application. Please come up and identify yourself and tell us what your thoughts are.
My name's Jeffrey Nadeau, Nadeau. I live at 11 Gorham Pond Road, directly across from the Carries. So I've lived there for a number of years now, before he even lived there. And the only thing I have to say about where his septic lies is I've seen 2 trucks since I've lived there go through that septic system. Basically just trying to move product from the front of the house to the side yard of the house, basically is how you would describe it. So I feel like that would be the most major concern about trying to move anything back there. Where it is currently, I mean, like I said, we live directly across the street. We've never had any issues. The chickens are never roaming around, and I mean, from where I am, I can't even hear them, so that's really all I wanted to put in there.
All right, thank you, sir. Alan?
Do you live with a red barn that's in the right of way?
You have the red barn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yep.
All right, any other members of the public? Please identify yourself.
Hello, I'm Pam Boyer. I'm a direct abutter. I received the notification from this board. I want to thank you guys for sending me the notification for the hearing. I know that you guys were first talking about the first variance, but my thoughts that I had gathered were in regards to both variances, so I'd like to just speak on both. So I'd like to ask the zoning board to uphold and enforce ordinance 5.4.2.5, specifically .1 and .2. These ordinances are essential for the health of the public, animal welfare, and protecting the environment, and they're considered necessary for the well-being of our community. But I would also like to encourage the board to consider granting a variance for ordinance 5.4.2.5.3 in the case of the existing larger gray coop. That coop has been in place for, Israel said about 4 years, I thought 5 years, so it's been in place for a while now, and I think that granting the exception will allow the Carries to continue to use it without unnecessary hindrances. On the other hand, there is a secondary coop that's not currently located on the map. It's a smaller tan coop, and that one is extremely close to the boundary line. It's located approximately 15 feet away from where my wife and I park our vehicles. We have seen an influx of rodents and predators on our property, and we've chosen to adopt barn cats to help mitigate the problem. But we feel that this new coop, being so close to our property, I'm not sure if new was the right word, but the smaller coop being so close to our property line has the potential to cause damage. Upholding and enforcing the current ordinance regulations while making a thoughtful exception for the existing gray coop will ensure that our community thrives, is sustainable in a harmonious manner. So thank you guys for your attention. I appreciate your dedication to serving this community. I know this board has been hard to get some people on it, but I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anything from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, this would be either for the applicant or, actually, would you come back up, please? Before
Which one?
Pam.
Me?
Yeah. The
I have a
coop,
question,
the coop that you referred to, I did drive by the property today. That's going to be the one, as I'm looking from the road, that's closer to the stone wall on what would be, I would call the upper end of the property.
Closer to their driveway. Yep, so it's a larger gray coop. You probably may not have even seen the other coop because it's lower to the ground. It's a tan color coop.
Okay, does the stone wall represent, is that the boundary line between the two properties, or?
Yes. So it's actually kind of down the hill a little bit.
Okay. Jason, you had something?
So the variance was,
You can see them.
the variance is specific to the amount of chickens in the rooster. Has there been any issues with the number of chickens and or the rooster?
I would rather see the ordinance upheld, because at what point then are you allowed to have more and more and more? I do work from home. It is a little embarrassing at times when I'm on the phone with a client and then, was that a rooster? But it's, not anything that we haven't, we've had issues with or anything. The rodents have been a problem, but we know where we live. There's woods behind us, all that. We did get, like I said, the barn cats that kind of take care of that for us.
Okay. I would ask the same question to the first neighbor that was over here, with the question of the numbers.
Apologize, what was?
The variance that we're looking at, so the location and stuff of chicken coops, that's a special exception.
Yep.
We're looking at the variance, which is the number of chickens and the rooster.
Okay. I don't even really notice the rooster. I don't hear it anymore. We did when they first had it, but I just grown accustomed to it. I mean, my wife and I don't really hear it, and to be honest with you, I didn't even know how many chickens they have. They keep them pretty well contained, so I didn't know they even had more than 10.
Cool, thank you. And what is this red one?
That's that's the chicken coop in question.
The gray one? Or the
That gray
tan
one
one?
is the secondary one.
Okay.
That's the one,
The
the
one that's
red one is the
closest
one
to
you
the-
see from the street,
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
right near the,
Yeah.
So
behind the
that's
The edge of the
street.
gray one.
driveway.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
'Cause I didn't notice the tan one. I saw the gray one, but not the
And the
tan one.
50-foot setback lines are sketched on the site
Yeah, I see that on your.
in pencil.
Okay. Denise?
Can you just speak of the tan shed, please?
The tan chicken coop is it's a small movable one. I use it to, when some of my chickens, if one of them gets a cut, the other ones will attack it and eat it. So when there's a hurt one, it's cordoned off in that area, so it can heal and not.
So it's
get-
movable, it's
Yeah, I can
something
pick it
that you
up
can
and it.
move.
It's literally, I could pick it up and move it. I can move it to the other side of my chicken.
Chickens are mean to each other.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
most of the
Yeah,
time they're
if there's
good, but as soon
something
as one
injured.
gets a cut and there's blood,
Yeah.
They will, I've had one that got cut and they ate it.
Was that coop there when you bought the house?
No,
Okay. That's the little one?
the little one,
Yeah.
no, that coop, that's within a year.
Okay.
Like I said, that was just to, I had a couple, I got 2 chickens that were smaller and my other chickens were picking on it. So I needed to separate them. That's what that's for. And another issue is my kids sell eggs to provide feed for the chickens. And right now that's what we have. We have the amount of chickens that lay eggs and my kids put them in the farm stand. And that's their way of taking care of them.
Good. Thank you.
Do you want to go? Should we close this and then open for the other, or how do you want to handle that tonight?
I want to throw this
The
out.
answer for the variance is negative. There's no reason to deal with special exception.
Well, yeah,
Well, why am I
Yeah,
gonna-
there is.
No, there is.
There still is.
Yeah, yes,
Well,
it is.
it's gotta be, it's 50 feet
Right.
regardless, so you've still gotta deal with the special exception. And even if it is negative on the variance,
If we were to deny him, he can still have chickens. So then the coop becomes an issue, no matter what we do.
all right, unless the board has any objection, I think I would rather close this piece of it, deliberate on the variance, and then move to the special exception piece.
Okay.
All right, with that, if you want to step back, Mr. Carey, we'll deliberate on this piece, and then we'll come back to the special exception portion of it. Okay, thoughts, motions?
Well, this is gonna be one of those things, like I've always said, John, when we interviewed you, sometimes what you have to do isn't really what you wanna do. And this is gonna be one of these cases for me. I just don't see the hardship on exceeding the number of chickens. We don't make the rules, we don't make the laws. They're presented to the town people, they vote for it. And I feel the same way with the rooster. There's, for whatever reason, wouldn't want to be you today when you have to go home to talk to your children, but that's my feeling. I'm only one person.
And I would say to supplement what Denise said, part of the problem is if we grant a variance, this is a variance that travels in perpetuity with the property. And while we know how hard it is to disappoint our children sometimes, I can't see the hardship in the number of chickens that would justify granting the variance that will, for the future attach to the property. So, like Denise said, we'd like to be understanding, but I can't see the hardship in the variance piece. Alan, Jason?
Well, just as a question. If I wanted 10 geese, is it covered by ordinance?
Yep.
Yes, you
Says
can't have
no-
these.
No roosters, no
Or
geese,
geese.
it's right in the ordinance.
Okay.
Did our homework.
I'm just trying to make sure that I don't be racing more than I should be.
You could have
You can't
emu.
have any. Well, no, you have more than 1 acre of land. You have more.
Over
Over
Alan has
2
way
acres.
more than
Yeah, I
an
know he
acre of
does.
land, so,
He could have an emu.
well. Um, Judy, Jason?
I don't have anything to add that hasn't been said already.
Well,
The funny part is this, a little funny story. I have a farm up in Dunbarton with 1,000 chickens,
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay.
We're not here, though,
That's
to-
Dunbarton and that's a farm.
Whether we agree with this or not, it's the code that we have to follow. Doesn't matter what we feel about it when we don't see a hardship. I could say there is a hardship with having to tell us kids, but it's just not something that relates to the piece of property, to the land directly. So I'm going to motion to deny the variance based on my findings
But
for the amount of chickens and the rooster, and hopefully one of the neighbors who lives on more than 2 acres can take that rooster.
I tried getting rid of roosters.
but
Yeah.
in consideration, it is a business. Kids do sell the eggs.
I think it's great what the kids are doing.
It's a business.
They will still have eggs to sell, even with 10 chickens.
Actually, 8 a day. Maximum.
Well, Denise has made a motion. Do I hear a
I'll
second?
second that motion.
Okay, do I hear any further discussion on the motion?
Could you repeat your motion, please?
I motion to deny the request for a variance to be allowed to have more than 10 chickens and a rooster on a lot that is only 1 acre, where 2 acres is required.
And the criteria of granting a variance,
He doesn't meet the criteria. There's no hardship related to that piece of property.
Anything further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Alan? Motion passes 4-1, so your variance is denied. If you have anything further to add, otherwise we can move into deliberation on the special exception portion of your request. All right, I think everyone has spoken to both portions of it.
So special exception doesn't have the same demands for criteria. I feel that without the rooster being 20 feet from the property line versus 50 is acceptable, where it would be difficult for him to move that particular coop. But I'd also like to address the small tan coop that is something that he can easily move, to be moved 50 feet from the property line.
okay, do you think it's an appropriate buffer to the neighbors?
The neighbor that it is a buffer that it would affect has accepted that. So I would say yes. Limiting it to 10 chickens, less feed, less... And no
Yeah.
rooster, less noise. So yes, I do. And it sounds to me like he has a handle on those kids and they keep that thing clean and the chickens fed. It's good.
Is the public session closed for that too?
Yeah,
Okay. I make a motion to grant the special exception to allow the chicken coop. Sorry, I'm trying to find the wording and I lost my tab. I actually closed it. You have your paperwork here. Specifics here. Make the motion to grant the special exception against sections 5.4.2.5 and 5.4.2.5.3 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance to allow the chicken coop to be 20 foot, within 20 feet from the side property line, whereas a 50-foot setback is required.
I'll
Second.
Jason, seconded by Alan. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. You don't have to move your coop.
Thank you.
Can we give them a timeline to deal with this? I think that would be appropriate.
I would say around 30 to 60 days max.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Carey.
No, that's why I couldn't find it.
Okay. Okay, second application of the evening. LEED Development LLC, care of Dylan Cruis, applicant's owners, are seeking a variance to permit 6 detached single-family dwelling units as part of a condominium form of ownership on a single lot within the commercial zone. The variance is required because single-family dwellings and multifamily dwellings are not permitted per section 3.11.a, parens 1, section 3.11.a, parens 3, and section 4.3 of the Goffstown zoning ordinance. The property is located at Mast Road / Abingdon Way, map 18, lot 60-2, zoned commercial. And this lot is already part of a land condominium. Motion for regional impact.
A motion, there's no regional impact.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gail, you got it?
Could you spell the applicant's last name? Could you spell your last name?
Cruess.
Okay, I thought it was
First-
misspelled on the paperwork here.
First name is Dylan.
Yeah, I got that part.
Okay. I saw
Thank you.
something that said David, but
Oh,
it's
that's not
Dylan.
it.
Okay, Mr. Cruis, go ahead and tell us your story.
I will turn it over to our engineer, Jason Hill.
Right. Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Goffstown ZBA. I'm Jason Hill with TF Moran. I'm here obviously on behalf of Lead Development for a variance, essentially it covers a few different items in the zoning ordinance, but essentially it's to place, we have 6 single-family dwellings in the commercial district, where that's a prohibited use in the commercial district. So this is a property, are you familiar with the location of the property? This is on Mast Road, this is right at the Rite Aid Starbucks, Abingdon Plaza, or Abingdon Way condominium. And we're dealing with a parcel that's approximately, excuse me here, a little over probably an acre and a quarter approximately. The access is off of Abingdon Way. At the signal here, there's two-way drive Abington Way serves the site as well as the abutting Starbucks, Franklin Savings Bank, Rite Aid, and then there's a one-way road, the name of the street?
Mystic Way.
Mystic, there's a one-way off of, right turn only off of Mass Road, private drive. So we are doing a variance application for this project, for the use, and I've submitted the paperwork. So really, this is a condominium, as was mentioned, Abington Place condominium. It was developed in 2018. This is parcel number 2 within the development. We're targeting 6 single-family dwelling units. We expect to achieve a market rate competitive pricing and expected to attract, although we're looking to attract any prospective tenants, but first-time home buyers, potentially empty nesters. So this density is kind of driven by the density of the neighborhood here is a lot of quarter-acre lots in the Pinardville section. So it's comparable parcel sizing, but that's the target market for end user. We've contemplated over, this parcel's been vacant for probably 20 years, almost. The land's been developed around it. The reason for there's been prospective other developments, including like most recently a contractors and landscape supply contractor's shop, more of an industrial use, which was unsuccessful. And then there was, generally speaking, this property is negatively affected by visibility from both approaches on Mass Road, but particularly, both approaches. This is essentially invisible from the street, and for that reason, we have commercial development over the past 20 years has not been viable, and we've tried. So this is different from a lot of other parcels on this corridor that are commercially zoned, whereas their buildings are prominently fronting along Mass Road in the vicinity. And this, as we have with the bank, which is successful in Rite Aid here. But that aspect is what has led us to this point and why we're looking for the relief to do the residential. This is just a Google aerial map of the parcel in red. Now there's a Starbucks here, infilled on the abutting parcel. You can see and you're all familiar with the neighborhood, so we have some commercial corridor along Mass Road and then some shopping centers along the north side. In this general vicinity, it's primarily single-family housing. There's some apartments behind, NeighborWorks apartments behind us, and then there's some other apartments at Moose Club Park. But you can obviously see the neighborhood is commercial along the road, and then as you get back in the blocks and around the site, it's all, not all, but it's majority single-family housing of relative equivalent density. I'd even say we're probably less dense in terms, generally equivalent density to what we're trying to achieve. So here's the site, and here's the Mass Road signal. Here's Mystic Brook. This is a view from Mass Road signal at Rite Aid looking towards Manchester. That's the new Starbucks. The site is in this back area, as indicated. There's the Franklin Savings Bank, that's the Starbucks, Rite Aid. So there's a view scale into the site, which is used to support our assessment and what we found about the lack of sight lines into the site, which is I previously mentioned. This is just dead on, looking at the Franklin Savings Bank, looking north at Mass Road, from Mass Road at FSB, Rite Aid. Now the site we're talking about is behind, in this area, is the subject parcel. And this is finally looking westbound on Mass Road. Franklin Savings Bank, the traffic signal, FSB here, the Rite Aid tower behind it. No, that's actually part of the bank, excuse me. FSB here, there's the abutting photography studio. The site is back here, and then that's all the wooded area to block if you go further to the east. So we have a impediment which is detracting the commercial developments, leading to this lot being vacant for many years. And that is a direct result of the specific lot, the existence of the lot and the abutting land uses, which is different from other properties along this along the same section of Mass Road. So it's different from most of the other properties, which is causing this condition. And we did prepare I'll just, unless you would not prefer, but I would like to speak to the criteria briefly.
Please go ahead. You don't need to be verbatim. It's already part of the record, but whatever portions you would think would be appropriate to highlight.
Okay, thank you. Well, the first criteria is the public interest criteria, and that essentially relates to anything affecting the rights, health, finances of the public at large. And it doesn't mean and I'm reading portions of this from my report, it does not mean the mere curiosity, but a broad term that refers to the overall public. And that really relates to the essential character of the neighborhood and the not altering of that character, which this project will not alter that character, since we have such a robust residential sector. And the development will, build the actual building components of the development will comply with the zoning ordinance, in terms of the building aspects, setbacks, and things of those nature. So we're only asking for a relief of the use. As I said, the former attempts, which there have been multiple, to develop this property have failed due to the sightline issues primarily, which has caused the site to be non-viable for commercial development over the long term. Therefore, we have industrial developments are not approved in this district. You can, and other light industrial uses which may be permissible are not as viable as a residential use because of the neighboring residential properties. It's more compatible to propose a residential use. It's more consistent with what's out there and less impact into the apartment complexes that are abutting it and other things. So idle properties are deemed to be against the best interest of the public. Reasonable development, which will generate tax base, is a benefit to the public, and the use being housing is a benefit to many in the state of New Hampshire, obviously in our community. So these will benefit, this project will benefit the owner, abutters, and the public, and the applicant as well. So for those reasons, it's consistent with the public interest. The spirit and intent is the second prong that I'm going to address. That is similar to the public interest. It's protecting health, safety, and welfare of the community generally. This does not affect negatively any of those interests. For those reasons, we're consistent with this project is consistent with the spirit and intent of the ordinance. Substantial justice, that's relatively The meaning of that, as you know, probably familiar with, showing that the harm to the applicant, if the variance is denied, is greater than the harm to the public if the variance is granted. We contend there will be no harm to the public if the variances are granted. Increased tax revenues will offset any increase in demand on existing municipal facilities. And the harm to the applicant if the variance is denied is it will basically, we see this as the viable build out of this project in this area, and so this will enable us to deny the build out of this property and the carrying costs associated with taxes on a vacant piece of land over many years is also a negative aspect the client has to face. So for those reasons, we think that, I believe that that this project is substantial justice would be served. The fourth prong is the diminution of surrounding property values. This will provide attractively done facades that'll be, I'm not going to say upgraded, but they'll be professionally done, attractive new construction, which will only increase the value of surrounding properties because of its just aesthetic qualities of construction and new construction. And we're not going to provide, the use is not any type of a nuisance use which would degrade any of the surrounding properties or be viewed as causing a degradation. It's a complementary use. There's, these residents can walk to very local businesses that are accessed by the sidewalk network. We're actually proposing a sidewalk connection to Mass Road, so it's a complementary use to what exists. And then the fifth criteria, which is the special conditions of the property that distinguish that from other properties, that the denial of this variance would be a hardship to us. I talked about that at the beginning. This site is unique from other commercially developed properties on the corridor. It has certain constraints that others do not. Visibility from Mass Road, primarily, but others. The economic viability, so the density was kind of driven by like I said, being consistent with what is in the surrounding neighborhood, residential lot sizing. And it's a reasonable use because it's consistent with what's out there. It'll only improve the character, I believe, and not detract from the character. It is consistent with the character. So those reasons are the 5B criteria, and the 5A criteria. And for 5B, I'm also going to address, which is similar, but it's the unnecessary hardship will be deemed to exist if and only if, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, the property cannot be reasonably used in strict conformance with the ordinance, and that this variance is necessary to enable reasonable use. It's a similar argument. Like I said, it's unique. We've attempted the uniqueness of the property and the long-term, non-viable commercial development lack thereof that we've endured. So former attempts to develop the property commercially have failed due to the distant proximity, as I mentioned before, and the unfavorable sight lines in view from Mass Road into the property. As such, the site is more favorable to a residential development based on these particular constraints. Industrial uses are not viable due to the limited size of the lot we're dealing with, buildable areas, and the industrial nature of the use is not compatible with the neighborhood as much as the residential. So for those reasons, and this being a beneficial use which is needed in the community, being housing, market rate housing, And this approval will benefit not only the Lee development, but the town and the public. And for all these reasons, we think we have a viable, we would request the variance for the use from your ordinances. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of the board?
So, I have a question. The condominiums, are they rental condominiums or owner condominiums?
Not determined yet, but the intent would be owner condominiums. So this would actually be a sub-condo in the existing Abingdon Place condo. So right now there are 3 lots. In the condo, that's basically around here. Franklin Savings Bank is Unit 1, this is Unit 2, and the Starbucks that went in is Unit 3. Basically, all of this condo does is maintain the common access of Abingdon Way. So these single-family homes would be a condo in of itself, which would be a member of this condo. So this condo would be, this association would be in charge of contributing to maintenance and plowing of Abingdon Way. When we went to TRC, they had talked about having private trash pickup. So that would all be part of the condo association for these homes that they would have to address.
And Franklin Savings Bank is one of the owners of this?
Yes.
Okay.
They own unit number 1 in the condo.
So that's interesting to me, because one of the arguments that you just made was that the sight lines to the back of the property are impeded by Franklin Savings Bank, which caused its problem. Like, they put their bank there, so they created their own visibility problem. That's the way I'm seeing that.
There is a long...
I also have to say that, from my opinion, I don't see how, like, a residential area fits in there. Like, we've got now like, when I saw the Starbucks go in, I was like, oh, we're finally, like, there's commercial there. There'll be some more stuff that fills in that space now. Now I'm thinking, you're gonna put residential in there? That's not what I would expect in the commercial zone.
Franklin Savings Bank chose that site because the site we're talking about now is not viable due to sight lines.
There was...
No, you weren't aware of that. It was when we did that project.
The Abington Way
That was
Road,
actually a different.
so I have to ask somebody who's here longer. Where did that Abington, because I'm assuming that that's what some of the documentation we got from the previous.
It used to be an old estate.
Say again?
It used to be an old estate there.
Okay.
It included all that, plus the housing that NeighborWorks owns in the back, plus the back property that's owned by another entity right now.
So where did Abington Way, the road, where did that come from?
It came from a subdivision plan submitted by
By
the
your-
current developer.
Okay.
And it
So
was approved by the planning board
I gotcha. That's fine.
with the stipulation that it remained commercial.
Oh, well, see, I didn't know that. That's important. But I also go back to, okay, so there's now a bank that's in the way that's blocking the sight line to the back, but that road was created by the bank, which is part of that group that owns it. So,
The road was created initially at step 1.
Right.
okay,
The bank was later on after Rite Aid.
okay.
There used to be a park there,
Yeah, I remember the park.
okay? And the park, I don't know how that got changed. And there was rain gardens and all that kind of stuff with the site development. So I don't know who owns what anymore on that. Whether Rite Aid owns their own site? Don't know. The Franklin Savings owns that site where they are, I'm assuming.
Mr. Cruz, you wanted to respond?
Just for project history, these initial plans were approved in 2009. And at the time, where Franklin Savings Bank was, it was a private park that was open to the public. It was called Abingdon Park, after a little park in New York City somewhere. And at the time, we thought the park would be an amenity. We thought that that would help drive development in this back parcel. Because originally, this was all one lot. And we had part of the master plan approval, there was an office building, there was medical office, there were a lot of uses. And the park had beautiful trees, and it blocked any view of that back parcel even in, say, 2010, after they started to mature. So over basically 10 years, we had come in with various different uses trying to get somebody to go there, thinking it would be an amenity. The park went away in, I think it was 2018. We were actually closing it to the public because we could not insure a private park. It started to get, like, municipalities have immunity, but as a private landowner, we did not. And there was starting to be glass bottles, there were syringes, there were skateboarders. So basically the park was going to be closed. And at that time, Franklin Savings Bank kind of simultaneously came in and said, we want to put a bank there. And we said, why don't you go back where the Starbucks was? And they said, we don't like that for visibility. So as part of, in 2018, it went through the planning board, where quite grudgingly, the planning board agreed that the park was not a viable option and that they would accept the bank to go in there. As part of that, the Favreau Monument got relocated kind of to the corner of Mast Road as part of that. And so subsequent to that, I think it now in 2019, we actually came back into this board trying to do a second phase of the Neighbor Works workforce housing. And we had 28 townhomes that Neighbor Works was sponsoring, and
which was denied.
At like a 3-2 vote. So then we had to go back to the drawing board. In 2022, that's when Starbucks approached us. Not that it matters, but Starbucks said, we'll go there, but we're certainly not going to pay a whole lot. And that is, if you notice, every single thing that they did was to locate absolutely as close as possible to the visibility and to the Rite Aid. This remaining parcel is, I think, 1.2 acres, and we went through the sight lines are 1.17? Yeah, 1.17. The parcel has no visibility. Honestly, I think in then 2020-ish, we came in with a contractor and a landscape supply yard, which frankly, we didn't think met the character of this area. You have residential, you have Neighbor Works behind, you have to put in a high traffic landscape business right next to those residences behind would have been more disruptive. We were into fence heights, we were into building heights, we were talking about hours of when they could operate their tractors. And this is the last parcel in this development that we've been working on since 2009. And we've tried almost everything. We had a Goodyear, we had a AutoZone almost ready. And even where the Starbucks finally went is where they pulled out saying there wasn't the visibility that they had requested. I guess if this was 2 years or 3 years after the initial approval, but it was 2009, so this is over 15 years of trying to find a use that will go here, and we haven't found it yet. We think the character of the houses, they're only about 1,000 to 1,400 square feet is what the footprints are. we're aiming for, just almost by how it will have to be, it'll be an affordable house. Since it is small and tightly packed and near some commercial uses, these will naturally be as affordable as they can be, not high-end homes. And this is a section or a type of housing that is needed everywhere. So yeah, believe me, we've been trying for literally over 15 years, trying to find something. And it was, like in 2009, it was like the park, Pinardville didn't have a park. We thought it would be this communal gathering space, which would drive traffic, which would naturally then have all these uses that would want to go back there. And unfortunately, it never happened. It never got to that, and then the park became a liability, so.
Okay, I'd like to ask some questions and make some comments. So I'm looking at this piece of property, and I'm thinking back when it was developed, and you had the park. You really had no frontage. You had the frontage for the Rite Aid,
Yep.
but the rest of your commercial development started out with no frontage on Mass Road.
The initial subdivision line was actually, there was a subdivision line roughly through here. So, sorry, at the initial
Okay,
2009 subdivision,
so where was the park at that point?
so here we are. The park was basically the entire lot of what Franklin was. And then there was a subdivision line kind of right through the center of it. So in the initial 2009 subdivision, this was a lot and this was a lot.
Okay.
So they each did have legal frontage.
They had legal
on Mass.
frontage, but they didn't have visible frontage.
No.
You know, you were not developing properties when you created this development that were front and center on Mass Road.
Correct.
Okay. And going back to the planning board, you gained a lot that was on Mass Road, which is where the bank is.
Yes.
Okay. I'm having a hard time finding hardship when you picked that up. I love this development. I think it's a great development. I think it could work in all commercial, maybe not retail, but I think it is viable you could definitely support commercial. It's patience, it's may not be getting what you want, but it's not on Mass Road. And I do want to speak on the comment about other developments on the strip. And I may be wrong on the name, but I believe it's a Little Green Mall. Okay? It's a deep,
Just down the
narrow,
alley.
commercial property,
Yeah.
which has been successful.
Yeah.
And then you continue down, you go to the plaza. I mean, you gotta have binoculars to figure out what's way in there. So you have to go out of your way to go and see what's there. You also have the development across the street, which is kind of backwards.
Tire warehouse? Yep.
Yeah.
The
side of that
plaza,
building.
yes,
There's a
that,
car wash.
but it's been successful. Slow, but successful. So they do work. We are very limited in commercial space. I like that we had the workforce housing in the back. It's part of it. When you develop commercial and residential together, the residential people have to understand that they're buying a condo or whatever is there in a commercial development. So I appreciate you being sensitive to what goes there, but they have to understand that they are part of a commercial development. I'm just, I wrote down your criteria. Those are some of the things that were pointed out to me that I cannot accept as criteria, where it wasn't ever the intent to be front and center on Mass Road. It was always, the buildings were always set back.
That is true.
And you said that there was interest from like landscaping companies and stuff, that's permitted under commercial.
No, right.
So then, I mean, you just kind of said you had opportunity there, so.
At the time, the user went away because he couldn't afford the pre-engineered building that he was looking at. But we had interest. We did have interest, and that was in 2020. There has not been any interest subsequent to, and he was actually going to take the entire parcel. So that at the time was like 2.5
The
acres.
Starbucks plus
Yeah,
this.
the Starbucks plus that. And now there's 1.1 acres or 1.17 acres left that we're paying taxes on every year as a commercial lot since 2009. And we've come before this board several times saying what can go there. And this is a viable proposal that can go there that we think will be successful and will likely drive more value than.
That's why you're here, is it
No,
can't
but-
go there.
Well, I was chairman of the board, planning board, when this was approved. And it was approved with a lot of thought. And the preservation of the commercial area was a prime. And there's not a lot of commercial activity in Goffstown, period. And from my point of view, there never will be. Because it takes people to promote commercial. We don't have enough to attract commercial in Goffstown yet.
Well, right, but if we keep filling it with residential, then we'll never have commercial to fill it. We'll run out of space.
Precisely.
That's why we have the commercial zones. I mean, I can't say how many times I've heard we need to protect our commercial space.
And Alan, I
I'm not saying
agree
we
with you.
shouldn't. I'm not
And I
saying we
think in
should.
this one we should.
I agree. You need rooftops to drive commercial. You have plenty of rooftops in Penarville. There's a lot of rooftops in Penarville. My concern is, this is already a mixed-use development. It is exactly the intent of that, which is no longer a zone, unfortunately, but
it was
you know.
proposed by the developer. It wasn't proposed by the town.
But it was, the way it was set up is perfect. It's exactly what we want out of these developments, that run deep, put some residential in the back, you know, put commercial in the front. My opinion is this is the front of this piece of property. It was the way it was developed.
Yeah, the fly in the ointment is the building in front. The old white building.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
but
that
that's,
one.
yeah,
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't control that.
The old country furniture building.
I think they'd have bought it by now if they could.
We have tried
sure.
many times.
I'm sure you
We have
have.
tried many times, and
But
good one.
that's not something
The fly
that
in the
is
ointment.
brought here tonight.
But
Oh, I
the
know.
bank building is the other thing that is interfering with the very sight line that we're talking about. I mean, just my thought and my comment on this thing, I for one don't think this is appropriate for single-family residential. Well, tell me you're really going to sell single-family residential to somebody with the queue for the Starbucks drive-up going through what's essentially their backyard. You know,
The queue is
I
on
just-
the other side of the Starbucks. The queue is on. just
No, the
back-
queue has to come, the queue doesn't start there. They come in across the front of the building
Well, that's the
and
parking
around
lot.
the building.
Right.
The point being, you still got drive-up traffic going through your backyard. If it were multifamily, if it were something like that, I might think differently, but I just think that the setting for single-family housing, particularly at the density that you're looking at there, it's not an appropriate site at all.
Well, given the Penardville section, there are a lot of homes in Penardville that are closer together than proposed on this site plan.
Yes, and they were built 50, 60 or more years ago before zoning existed in this town, Alan, for the most part.
Yeah,
That's true.
Well, there's also no caveat in the presentation that says that all these houses are gonna be different and unique. So we don't have any control over what's actually built. Think
No,
about that one.
but if it's less than 1.2 acres, then it's less than 0.2 acres per unit.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's,
Six.
for Goffstown, that's tiny.
That's a swing
For
set.
new,
Go
for
on.
new development, yeah.
No swing set.
That's one of the reasons
go-
why we have all the new development zoning stuff with having minimum lot sizes. Like, we wanted to curtail some of that.
Yeah,
This
but
is a
there's-
condominium though, so it's different.
Well, if it's single family though.
Still condominium, it's condominiums.
Yeah. But they could be tight, closer together and be okay.
Mhm.
Because we've approved projects with the buildings at 10 foot apart.
My issue is the residential component in a commercial property. I think it can be filled, and I could be wrong, but I think it can be. There's offices, there's people that don't necessarily need traffic to drive it. I think it was the intent originally, you even said
It
an
was.
office
No,
building.
it was the intent originally.
Right, it was the intent.
It's 15 years plus.
Unfortunately, in Goffstown, it takes patience with the commercial. And it was, I just don't see how that is different. It's not unique in shape or size, simply for the fact that I told you about the other lots. That they're commercial, they're very successful, and they are narrow in the front and go back.
My only caveat would be with today's construction prices, I don't think you'd be able to build those today and lease them to the tenants that they have. Where construction is now, to build a new building, to have a strip center or something that would fill with similar tenants.
I'm
would
not
not be a
saying to
viable-
duplicate that,
Yeah.
I'm saying that what's down the corridor of these not strip malls, but you can't see. You cannot see from Mass Road.
Right.
And they're successful. So if you put a building out back that you may not see necessarily, right, you can't
Yeah,
see it,
no.
you showed that, it's blocked,
Yeah.
doesn't mean it won't be successful. Because this town's proved that we have that. So it's not unique, in my opinion, because we have those businesses, we have those commercial buildings that are successful that you cannot see from Mass Road.
And on the people aspect that you said about, takes people to build commercial, we've just have some really, really large developments now that are coming in. Those are your people. Again, I think that what Denise says, it goes to patience. You've got to have patience.
I was on the Economic Development Council for a number of years too. And the prediction, do you know what the prediction was? The number of units that had to be constructed in town to create an atmosphere that would attract commercial. 2,500. And we're not even a quarter of that now. And it's, 15 years later. So it hasn't been happening.
2,500 people,
We've 2,500 housing units.
housing.
But there's been a lot of commercial in the past 15 years.
Yeah.
There has been.
But the thing is, if the commercial was really that hot in Goffstown,
No, it's not.
somebody would have built pad site things
Right.
where Shaw's was. And it hasn't happened. Why? Because there's not enough people here to drive it. I work for these people.
How many acres of commercial industrial flex have been opened in the last 5?
How many have we lost?
I'm curious. 'Cause I know you converted a bunch of land, residential in the agricultural land to commercial in the county area maybe.
No, county area
Or
is
maybe just,
off limits.
Yeah.
okay, no, that's, I just didn't know if, I was thinking about that.
At 400 and some odd acres of the commercial.
The flex zone is no longer in this town.
The commercial industrial flex?
And you could put a residential component, they eliminated it last year. No residential. Now, it used to be they used to have a
Oh,
flex
because
zone.
the flex, yeah.
We don't have that in this
We
town.
just
anymore.
granted a variance for one in the flex zone.
That's what I'm saying. I guess my point is, I think they know they've opened up
The one up
a
on,
number of acres of new commercial
Yeah,
land
the
since
one on the
this-
class 6 end of
Yeah.
Kennedy Hill. But I,
And you see, there's no guarantee on this site plan that they'll all be different, that these housing would be unique. that would attract a different kind of buyer. We
It's
can't,
What kind of buyer are you
not the
talking about?
not the difference, Alan, it's the
Doesn't
density.
matter, right.
I mean, to Jason's point before, I mean, how many, right now, we got 2 major projects in town that are about to be populated. How many apartment units? We've got 100 or
84,
more in the
yeah.
Factory Street
Yeah.
project.
99 plus the building.
Well,
And there's the
pardon,
project down
Pardon?
on Bog.
yeah,
Bog
plus,
Road.
plus the Bog
And the
Road
75.
project. I mean, you're looking at, several hundred units of residential development that will be opening within the next year or
265.
two.
Right, but not to mention the ones that were on the Angel Circle that now have opened and,
You know,
There's
it's-
another-
I personally don't think that's relevant. I'm just speaking my mind here, you know me. Doesn't matter if there's 3,000 residential houses going on, I don't care if there's one. This is a commercial piece of property, it's already utilized, mixing it with residential. Nothing has changed in this, the location and the visibility since it was originally planned. Except for the park was eliminated, which got you a building up front. So that was a great advantage to you, which is great, right? It's a good advantage to the town, everything worked out well. But now that building is blocking the rest of your site. Yeah, I go in that area quite often. It's a nice area, there's a lot of traffic in there. Now that you have Starbucks, you have the bank, you have Rite Aid, you're gonna see a lot more traffic in there. I don't think it's a useless piece of commercial property. And commercial properties in this town are just, they're sacred. We only have so many of them.
I've said my piece.
Okay.
I got nothing to say.
John, even though you're an alternate, you have full right to speak, you just can't vote.
Yeah, I drove around, today, and I parked, and I was by the houses, and, I love the way that it's drawn up. What jumped out at me first was 1.17, and seeing 6 shoehorned into that lot. Now, I didn't know the history of this commercial lot. I'm just, taking what was given to me, and.
Which is what you should do.
And the living element in the back, so that didn't throw me, the living element here didn't throw me off. But the 6 units, and some of them were 1,700 square feet, 1,600 square feet, with the common area and the 1.17, I couldn't see 6 being put into that lot. I guess you could shoehorn them in there, but it wouldn't look as good as this picture, I don't think, I live there. This is my neighborhood, I watched the whole story, the park, and I watched everything go there, and I've lived here my whole life in that area, and, but like you said just now, I use Rite Aid, Franklin Savings Bank is one of my banks, and I'm across the street, and I utilize the Green Mall, and there is a lot of traffic in it. Try to get into Rite Aid sometimes, you know what I mean? And then the people coming out of Starbucks and with the bank and stuff, there is. And the old white building is definitely the eyesore that blocks that opening, but that is accessible through the one-way, and it's accessible through Abingdon, you know what I mean? And that 1.1 acres, it's not that big. I drove around and I parked and I looked and I tried to think about it, and I'm like, how are you getting 6 single-family homes with common area, with a cul-de-sac to fit into there, That was where I was thinking. I didn't know about the history of the commercial lot though, and where that went. So that was new to me tonight. But that's what jumped out at me.
I don't look at it with your practiced eye, John, but I will tell you that was the first thing that hit me when I drove through the area too. Wow, this
I
is
parked
small.
3 different spots and
This
I
is
sat
small
there and I
for what's
looked,
proposed.
and I'm like, I could not envision, being a builder, I'm like, wow, that's aggressive to be able to try to put 6. You know, and I love it, the drawing looks great, I just didn't see, not on 1.1.
Well, they do have density regulations,
Yeah.
and we're under, we would not exceed those. I think you get 15 dwelling units per acre in this district, so if it's about density, you know, we're not
Yeah.
about density, we're under the density.
And
So
this
that shouldn't
too
be
is,
something that,
there are things that I was envisioning would have to get worked out in planning, because we did go to TRC and the sewer department said, how are we gonna tie into the force main? Where, are you gonna need a separate pump station? Fire turning radius. So there are many things that would have to get worked out in planning that would very likely reduce that to 5 units, 4 units, something.
I tried to
Yeah.
squeeze 5, I couldn't even squeeze, I said, I see
That's-
4 max.
I guess my point is that we're not proposing a variance for density,
Yeah, right.
You know,
so that shouldn't, you know, just to clarify.
it's for residential, is what the variance is for.
I still think this type development would fit in better with the neighborhood than a loud contractor yard. Yes, the zoning doesn't say that, I will admit that, but it'll drive frankly more tax base and be more in character with the surrounding uses than a business that will have lots of noise, more traffic, which is another concern, going through the intersection there. So this would be the end of a 15 to 16 year saga. And there would be a market for the houses, because there's a market for any house, especially at a low, dense price point, which that's what these would naturally be with the size of the homes, the density, the fact that you are right next to a Starbucks. These are your entry homes.
I just have a question for my fellow zoning board. How can we be expected to really look at this when we don't know? He just said, like, the final outcome with yet all the planning that has to be done, it could end up being 4 or
I'll answer
3.
that for you.
Excuse me?
I said I can answer that for you.
Go ahead.
That's not our decision. Our decision is, are we gonna allow residential components in a commercial property?
Right.
That's
I
the
just
only
think it's
thing.
backwards.
No, because they can't go to the planning board till they get permission
To put houses there.
to get a variance to put
I still think it's
housing.
backwards. Yeah.
It's planning board are the ones that deal with that.
No, if
That's
they
their job.
if they had come and said a residential and not seeing 6 packed in like sardines, I could be easily influenced. Oh, dude, some little houses in
But you're
Goffstown.
you're not saying, if you approve this, you're not gonna say, I approve this for 6 residential homes.
No,
All
That's
we're
the
saying is we are allowing
right.
residential on this piece of property.
It's still missing information, I feel. That's all, I'm just making
yeah.
a statement
No, but
as a
that's-
zoning board member.
Right.
To my other members, I think we don't always have a good enough picture to state what we really are looking at and what we really need to accomplish the results of where this conversation has headed in many directions, that's all. Thank you.
But that's the way the process is set up. We need to give the basic permission for use of the property for that use before you can even begin to go to the planning process and working out the details. That's the way the state law
And you're
works,
talking
and that's what we have to follow.
You're talking a year
But you
going through
could,
planning.
you could put on this site a 24-unit garden-style apartment building. Easily.
I guess I would say even that would then shade the residential units behind, and it still wouldn't be, and we looked, I think it was more like 18 units that we thought we could fit, and we talked to a builder, and the builder said it's 300,000 plus per unit, especially at that scale, and it wouldn't be economically viable. It's the character of what this neighborhood should be, I would contend, should be a small, and you're right, maybe it isn't 6. It probably isn't. It's probably 4. I'd like 5, but maybe it's 4. And I think part of why we'd go to zoning before planning, because planning, you have to invest in designing it down to the catch basin invert, where you'd start to really figure out how do these units access sewer? How does that sewer then get into the city system? And that's where the details come in. Well, this is a much higher level of this we think is the right use for this property after this long.
I think a different way to look at it, the way that I was looking at it is, we're looking to give them permission to have planning allow them to stuff as many things in there as possible. That's kind of how I look at that. Like, we can't determine what's going in there, but
How can we
if I had permission, I'd be wanting to get as much out of it as I possibly could. That would be my.
see the missing link?
My-
We can't
Because that's
determine how
conforming
many
to zoning
things
at
are
that,
going
but
in
we're not
there,
asking
but
for
we're asked to
A
vote
change in the ordinance.
whether we should allow it or
only for the-
not.
for the use.
But
It
the,
just seems a vote should be a
You
complete
can make a
process.
motion that says 6. If you want.
and planning doesn't have to follow that.
But they do.
It's not easy, yeah.
They can't do more than that. They can do less.
I would think
The thing that I think if we were gonna really get to the 10,000 foot level we're dealing with here is the problem of Goffstown's lack of commercial property. And every time we infill a commercial property with zoning, there goes another piece of commercial development. We're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't, because
That's true.
people in town will bitch about the tax rate and commercial and why can't you attract business, but then we get proposals like this where we have a commercial property where we want to infill it with residential. So, you know, it's a double bind situation from
Did you
zoning
save your
purpose.
copy of the Penardville study?
Oh, I remember the Penardville
Did you
study.
save your copy?
Oh, I
Did you
probably
ever
have
read
it
it?
somewhere on a computer. Not in years, Alan, not in years.
from a tax base point of view, I would argue this would be more beneficial to the town than a small contractor yard or some other, like, I know, I don't believe it's allowed, but self-storage. Like, these are all uses that,
Or
this is the right
an-
use.
An office
That's
building, a chain restaurant, the kinds of things that don't
that's-
depend on direct
What we,
road
The office
exposure.
building market is, since COVID, is pretty much, you know, for the midterm, not, I don't know about long term, but it has changed over 15 years because of various, you know, factors, but.
all I can say is over 15+ years, we have talked to so many users, so many different types of users, and it's never gotten traction. We thought the park would be an amenity. Back in 2009, we thought it would be a gathering place for Penardville and people would gravitate and want to occupy buildings. And after 10+ years, it didn't happen. And to save commercial district, it's 1.1 acres. There's not a whole lot of substantial commercial that can even occupy that site. So I would respectfully ask for your consideration.
You go around the board, Alan?
I just want to say, if I can't convince somebody to do a pad site in the Shaw's Plaza, they're not going to be convinced to do one behind Franklin Savings, ever, for commercial. And I think we have to wake up to the reality of things. And the reality of things is, since that project was approved, the commercial and real estate market has changed dramatically in the last 14 years. Dramatically. That's why the city of Manchester is rewriting their zoning ordinance, the entire thing, to go with today's market. They're thinking about doing away with on-site parking in the residential zone. Because if you go to Boston, you don't find parking in your apartment, you park on the street, and you walk. So, reality is, we have to deal with that also.
Okay, Denise?
Alan, maybe you ought to start working on getting the zoning changed. We have zoning, they have to meet a criteria. I do not see that they meet criteria,
I didn't say they did.
okay? I'm looking through the answers, I'm looking through at what you have to prove. Whether, you sat here during a case that we had to do something we didn't want to do. Doesn't matter. You have to meet the criteria for many things to get a variance. Do you meet a couple of them? Yeah, you do. I don't see that you meet even close to half of them. You meet a couple of them, the rest you do not, in my opinion. I'm not going to go through them. I think everybody can make their own decision on that.
I'm all set. No more questions.
Jason?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, man. I will only say just that I second a lot of what Denise had to say. I just don't think the criteria are met, particularly in the showing of a hardship or variance, because I think most of the hardship is self-inflicted in this with the way the plot was developed. You claim you cite repeatedly the sight lines from Mass Road, et cetera, except the bank building that was put in there in front is what's blocking most of the sight lines. And, those of us who've been in town for a long time recognize the problem with the white building in front, and I'm sure it might be if you were able to buy that somewhere early in the process, we might be looking at a different story here, but, I don't see that it meets the criteria. If you gentlemen don't have anything else to add, and I'll just close the public hearing if you'll step back. I don't see anyone in the audience or anything that you'd like to respond
Just
to.
one short thing, before the bank was developed, the park was also granted we built the park, but that was causing issues with the development of those parcels as well. So it wasn't necessarily the bank that created that, it was even before that, it was other factors. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Formality, I don't see anyone in the audience to speak on for or against it, so I'm going to close the public hearing and let's enter into deliberations, folks. Thoughts, statements, motions?
I would just like to make comments on
When they built the park, do you remember that used to be a treed site?
Mm-hmm.
And you couldn't even see onto that site.
Yeah, they
when
had
it
a
was
row
first-
up the.
It was just a driveway opening in the front,
With a fence.
and that was all removed. And so, when they talk about, well, they had a growth of trees, no, they didn't.
Okay. I'm just gonna go my opinions on this. So it's not contrary to the public interest. It's commercial, we require commercial in this town, we need it. And it is, it's zoned commercially. That's my opinion on that. The spirit of the ordinance is observed. It's already a mixed development. Even though they're not even allowed now, I like mixed developments, I think it's a good idea. And it is a mixed development. So now adding more residential is not the intent at all of our zoning.
Isn't that a mixed development? If
It
you
is.
add more residential than something that already has commercial and residential?
Yeah, it's
Well,
still
yeah.
mixed, but it's not the intent of what we wanted to do when you said, if you look at the history of that zone, which it's not even in that zone anymore, it's strictly commercial. Granting variance would do substantial justice. You know, the issue I have is the original development of that piece of property. It wasn't on Mass Road. And, you know, fortunately, you were able to eliminate the park and you got a development right on Mass Road, which, I mean, we all know that's worth more money and good for you. I'm glad you got that. But now you're asking for more. So I don't feel that us, you know, there's no substantial justice in my eyes to approve this. Surrounding property values, so it would not affect them, you know, certainly. The site is not unique. So if you go into the criteria of 5A and 5B, it's not a unique site. I already spelled out a few developments that are successful. They were a little slow in getting developed, but they are successful. There's a couple, and same with 5B, you kind of use the same criteria, and I personally think it's not a unique development for that area.
And it has no street frontage.
Yeah, well, it's the way it was developed, and I don't have an issue with that. I don't. It's the development, I have no issues with the development. I always like that development.
Okay.
Judy or Jason?
Just remembering something, but the CIFZ, right, that was permitted originally by special exception, right?
No, you didn't.
Or variance, which one was it? I don't
No,
remember.
I don't think you needed either. It was
permitted?
It was as long as you developed both. You had a
Okay.
mixed use.
Yeah, and then we removed the residential provision from
Correct.
that. Yeah, so
Correct.
that, I mean, that was the intent, that's the spirit intent right there. We removed it on purpose. So, I don't have anything else to add, because I think you just said everything. I'll make a motion to,
John, let's see if John.
oh,
has
sorry,
anything to
John.
say.
Almost up.
You all set?
You sure? I didn't want to cut you off.
Okay, go, Jason?
So, I'll make a motion to deny the variance request. Hold on, I gotta get my words again. Darn words.
Okay, and let's give some findings for
Yeah,
the record.
There you go.
yeah, thanks. Gotta name these files better. All right, so I'll make a motion to deny the variance to permit 6 detached single-family dwelling units as part of a condominium. Finding that the spirit of the ordinance is not being met. Where did it go? The proposed use is not in the public interest, in that the public actually removed the residential components of some of those purposely. So not having not having residential in a commercial is what the public desired. So it's not consistent with the ordinance. Substantial justice I don't believe applies, because the commercial property is viable. The applicant actually gave some examples where it was. I think surrounding commercial properties could be affected in their values. I'm not sure that is proven either. And as Denise said, there aren't any special conditions of that property that distinguish it from others in that area, other than the ones they caused on their own.
Can I just make a note?
Sure.
I personally do not believe that surrounding properties would be diminished. I would not include that as part of it. I don't believe they would be, if you're finding that in your findings. I don't think
I don't think they would be, no.
Oh, I
That's
thought
what
you
was
said they
saying.
would be, I apologize.
Yeah, no, I don't think they would be.
And it just clarifies your motion a bit.
Yes.
Sorry,
thank you.
there's a lot of words there.
Yes, that's fine.
Sorry, Gil.
You got that down.
Okay, period.
Period. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any additional discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Alan? Motion carries. Gentlemen, your variance has been denied.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
All right, where's the rest of my? I think the only other thing we have on the agenda tonight is correspondence.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Alan.
We changed a number of years ago for Nancy to 3 weeks cutoff dates for applications to the zoning board. 3 weeks prior.
Okay.
Now, I got my package, was mailed on the 23rd of February. 2 weeks ago. And so why do we need 3 weeks? We needed 3 weeks for Nancy to get anything done.
I don't need 3 weeks. I do-
He doesn't need 3 weeks.
I do it the same day, just about.
So can we change that back to 2 weeks? So it increases the performance of this board and gets people in and out of here on a reasonable basis.
I have no issues, but what if Jack's on vacation?
I'm going on vacation in August.
See you later.
Whoever they assign.
I'll cover.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have an issue.
I don't have a problem.
If Jack doesn't have an issue.
No, I don't have an issue.
I
No,
think-
make
I
sure
think
he's not
it
strong
doesn't-
arming you.
Yeah,
Let me twist that.
yeah, young strong arm ranger.
But I think, I know better. But I think it's a little proactive in terms of how this board works, is if we can shorten that timeframe.
Hey, I'm all about that.
I agree.
I don't have any problem.
Bureaucracy.
As long as there's nothing, as long as there's nothing in the ordinance that specifies
No, it
anything.
doesn't.
So it's strictly.
It's strictly a procedural.
So we could give Jack 4 hours then. He said he'd get it done today.
Yeah.
Same day.
No, but.
Yeah, but then you gotta review it.
But
Big Patty needs.
the
I have
answer
no
is-
problem with that,
The answer to
Denise.
the question is this: if it's too complicated, what do they do in other municipalities? What do you think?
Table it.
I didn't get it done. You're on next month, not this month.
Well,
I have never been told that. And let me tell you.
I have.
Oh, I haven't.
I thought, isn't there the rules though that?
There's
that
a
when it's done
deadline.
that you have
They
to
better, yeah.
give- Yeah.
I mean, no. There's a deadline doesn't mean you're on the agenda, ever.
I thought it was the
Yeah.
deadline
No.
you had to be heard by a certain amount of time.
No,
I think she needs.
90 days.
She needs 2 weeks' notice in the paper, is that what it is? I believe that's what Patty needs.
Well, maybe you should find out what
I
she
will.
needs before we turn around and do something that we're not
I
supposed to
think,
do.
I would suggest that we defer this decision to our next meeting and get a little bit more
Yeah, let me get some
information
more
about it
input
rather
from
than
Patty.
doing
Take
it.
a little-
Get the
Rather than
powers to
flying
be.
by the
Yeah.
seat of our
Make that
pants
decision.
tonight.
So we need more time to get information on whether we need less time?
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay, I just wanted to make sure, clear as mud.
Put that in there, laptop.
Exactly, if only two, because if we don't want to screw up mailing deadlines or anything like that, let's have the information in hand before we make a firm decision on it.
I have no time, I have no issues with any of the deadlines. I've been able to review everything. So I'm good.
As long as everyone has time to do their homework.
You should be glad. I gotta go to Manchester next week. I'm 22nd on the list.
Well, you'll be done around 1 AM.
With that,
Oh,
motion,
yeah, zoning.
motion to adjourn?
Yeah, let us take a motion to adjourn unless anyone has anything else.
After 21.
But they don't deliberate. They won't deliberate. They have another meeting to deliberate.
They won't, they do not vote, and it's very nerve-wracking.
It is.
To go through that and to say, well, we're gonna take a vote. When?
They have another meeting.
They have another meeting
Just for voting.
to vote.
But they can go through 21.
Is there a second on that?
Oh, no,
Second.
11:30.
All in favor of motion to adjourn?
Aye.
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 Thank you.